Welcome back. Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has promised to investigate the conduct of last week's legislative election in his country. The Russian leader issued the remarks via his Facebook page. At least 4,000 people responded to President Medvedev's comments on the internet. Many of them spoke angrily about the Facebook statement from the Kremlin. We have details of that story in this CFI report.
Dmitry Medvedev responded via Facebook. On his homepage, he promised to open an investigation into allegations of electoral fraud. But he said nothing about organizing new elections. His message set off a huge wave of reactions, mostly negative. He had no other choice because he brought everything to extremes. If he didn't make this decision, people would be losing their faith in him, which they're starting to do anyway.
I think it would be more correct if it were not simply a vote recount at first. It would be better to hold another State Duma election, to do it again.
Since the vote on December 4th and the victory of the party in government, United Russia, videos and testimony about crooked election practices have been flowing. These amateur video images were filmed on a cell phone, showing the stuffing of a ballot box on election day. The head of the Electoral Commission, who was heavily criticized, reacted for the first time and defended the commission, the most open in the world, he insisted.
Что касается организации выборов,
Concerning the
они были
organizing of the
организованы хорошо.
elections, everything was well
Общее число
organized.
тех
The
замечаний,
number of
которые
wrongdoings noted
мы знаем,
was under
составляет
1% of
менее
all the
1%
polling
всех
stations in Russia.
избирательных участков Российской Федерации.
A Russian NGO did some calculating and estimated the level of fraud to be about 20% of the total votes. Russians expect the government to take more steps to maintain the pressure. These are rare steps being taken by Russian civil society groups.
The former military leader of Panama, Manuel Noriega, has been flown back to his country after spending over 22 years in U.S. and French jails. The 77-year-old Noriega flew into Panama City amid tight security and was immediately taken into custody. The former Panamanian strongman was sentenced in absentia for the murder of critics during his time as ruler of the Central American country. For more on Noriega's return to Panama, we turn to this piece by Canal France International.
Former strongman Manuel Noriega returned home to face justice in Panama Sunday after spending 20 years in prisons in the United States and France for drug trafficking and money laundering. The 77-year-old arrived on an Iberia flight from Paris escorted by police. He now faces 3 separate sentences after being convicted in absentia for crimes committed in Panama, including the murder of critics. It is a person who has tortured, who has committed crimes and caused wounds, who has done great damage to Panama. He returns and the world watches us. What are we, the Panamanians, going to do? We're going to demand justice for Panama so that all the cases are tried here, because this is the example that we should give to the world. Manuel Noriega served as military dictator in Panama from 1983 to 1989. He was on the CIA's payroll from 1968 to 1986 before he became an enemy of Washington. Noriega's rule came to an end when U.S. troops invaded Panama in 1989 and arrested him. His return opens a painful chapter for many Panamanians. Our country will today be able to initiate a process that we, especially the victims of the dictatorship, have been waiting for a long time. A process in which our judicial system will carry out the sentence for the crimes that Mr. Noriega committed in Panama. Before he became the bête noire of the United States, Noriega was their best pawn in Central America. His return has sparked speculation over the possibility that he could reveal secrets about political figures and wealth amassed under his regime.
Well, time now to take our second break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and before we go, a reminder of our headlines. Government has announced the unanimous election of Gambian national Fatou Bensouda to the High Office of Prosecutor of the Hague-based International Criminal Court. The Vice President and Minister of Women's Affairs underscores the intricate link between positive work attitudes and the attainment of national development targets like the Vision 2020. Under pressure, Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has actually turned to Facebook to assure angry demonstrators that the Kremlin will probe the conduct of last week's controversial legislative election. And France has granted former Panamanian strongman Manuel Noriega his wish to return home, but the 77-year-old former leader is to spend at least 20 more years behind bars. Well, you can follow that story and other Grts programs live on our website, and that's on www.grts.gm. There you can also monitor Grts Radio live. That's all in the news. Thank you very much for your time. I am Fatou Kamara, and have a very good week ahead.
من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. إنكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. إنكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. إنكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.
di seetaan film Nigerian amal nañ leen film bu bees bi nga xam ne rek ñu ngi ko nar a wane fii si Gambia li nga xam ne rek waa Nollywood ñoom ñoo ko indi ku ñuy oyee Rookie Amata moo lañ amal film bi ñu ko wooyee di